Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Co-chairs, Minister Hakimi, Ambassador Yamamoto, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. As part of closing remarks, let me start by saying, مانده نباشین. Let me start by saying, مانده نباشین. May you not be tired. That's how we say, استلمشی. Psalms are known for being engaging in demand hard work. Technical assessment, re-evaluations, rethink in new policy initiatives, leading to improved collective action to achieve our benchmarks and objectives as set out at the Brussels Conference 2016 and prior to that in 2015 London Conference. I'm here, first of all, to thank you and your colleagues for pushing our agenda forward, for doing your best to meet our shared goals, and for taking time to keep us focused on our ultimate goals, which is to turn the transformation decade into a success for the Afghan people, into strengthen Afghan self-reliance. My appreciation goes to all of you. The donors first. Afghanistan appreciates the political, security, and development assistance it has and continues to receive from our friends. Since the first donor conference in Tokyo 2002, we have learned that Afghanistan is not the classical example of post-conflict nation needing textbook-style remedies. Our case is a bit more complex. It has many moving parts and not enough predictability, at times because of circumstances beyond our control. We are heartened by the fact that the world has recognized this unique trait and has adjusted its engagements accordingly. I am confident that with strategic patience and better recognition of the root cause of our ongoing challenges will pay off sooner rather than later. It is within this context that we look at our partnership with all of you, either representatives representing a donor country, the United Nations, IFIs, or non-governmental organizations. We are also aware that our work here impacts the private sector and is of interest to civil society, and more importantly, the public at large. That's why I also want to thank the Afghan people for their patience and understanding. Our people are both victims of wanton violence, but also defenders, resistors, and builders of new society, a new economy, a new constitutional order based on their wishes and aspirations. Our pledge is to make this difficult transition easier and shorter. Dear friends, over the last 3 years, despite a challenging environment, the National Unity Government has put the reform agenda at the heart of its strategic planning. Fighting corruption, enhancing service delivery, improving governance and rule of law, empowering women in private sector development are some of the priority areas that has kept us preoccupied. You have spent the whole day assessing our work, including achievements, but more importantly, setbacks and challenges that we continue to face. As President Ghani mentioned this morning, let me also assure you that the Unity Government is committed to deliver in the timeliest fashion possible on all the commitments made over the last 3 years. These commitments are all geared toward making Afghanistan a better governed, more self-reliant country, which is the wish of every Afghan. Let me now briefly discuss some of the critical issues of interest to all of us. Concerning security, defense, and our efforts geared towards ending the conflict imposed on our imposed on our people. The Afghan National Defense Security Force, more professional and accountable than ever, is the backbone to our strategy to bring security to the country, safety to our citizens, and a peace dividend for our region and the world, which has been affected by terrorism and extremism. Without an effective and responsible ANDSF, we will not be able to govern in an appropriate manner or provide the level of service our people expect and deserve. To that end, the mission carried under resolute support is critical. The training, advising, assisting, equipping, and mentoring that will be provided based on conditions and not timeline over the next few years are welcomed. My appreciation to the United States, NATO, and other contributing nations for their steadfast support. I would also like to thank our security forces and pay tribute to their heroic sacrifices, as well as our partners, which have helped us throughout in the past 16 years. Our aim is to see Afghanistan move towards sustainable peace and stability. That requires effective fighting to persuade the spoilers that there is only one alternative: Afghan-led and owned talks leading to some sort of settlement that does not undermine our sovereignty, territorial integrity, constitutional order, hard-earned gains, and national unity. To this end, we are once again giving it another try to see if we can come up with a functional and verifiable framework that deals with the pressing issues of security, safe havens, counterterrorism. The rest will depend not on words, but on strategy, action, and deliverables. Concerning political legitimacy in elections, the President emphasized this morning, and I may also reiterate, the legitimacy of political order is paramount, both to our own citizens as well as to the international community. We have learned the hard lessons of the past decade to understand that free and fair elections in Afghanistan is key to stability, rule of law, democratic rights, and unity in the country. President Ghani and I are fully committed to organize credible and viable parliamentary district council elections in 2018 and presidential elections by the end of our mandate. We have learned many lessons from the past elections, which will help the Independent Election Commission and other responsible institutions to organize free and fair elections. Together, we need to convince all Afghans that their votes matter and that the system, including eventual reforms, will be geared toward better and more efficient, open and representative government, not more restrictive and less representative. On fighting corruption, we all agree corruption undermines security, economic growth, investment, better governance, a trusted judiciary and legislature. Where it intersects with kleptocracy and nepotism, it weakens our institutions. It also forms a nexus with narcotics and smuggling rings. Corruption is a key driver of instability and violence. Now that we know how destructive it can be, we need to show political will and the ability to fight and defeat it. It's not enough to talk or write about it. We need to take measures that work and make a difference. The new Afghanistan national strategy for combating corruption is a strong step in the right direction. I would like to call upon our partners to closely work with us to move this important reform agenda forward. But I also call upon political, security, and economic elites to learn the lessons and come together to fight this menace. On the economic front, economic growth is on a rebound, albeit slow, given drastic changes that we faced before and after 2014 in our demographics and unemployment rate. We are taking steps to provide incentives and programs in key sectors such as agriculture, infrastructure development, small and medium-sized enterprises, mining in hydrocarbons, and financial services. I am happy to note that trade deficit has come down as our import rate decreased. We aim to boost this trend by increasing domestic production and providing incentives to our traders and manufacturers. At the regional level, we are making better use of air and land corridors, transit, trade hubs, power transfers, pipelines, fiber optics, as well as rail and road connectivity. Many regional projects are in various stages of formulation and implementation and will in due course provide benefits. Your long-term commitment through 2024 will help us, which I gather that somebody else might be CEO at that time, by that time. Your long-term commitment through 2024 will help us get through this challenging transitional phase, as it will guarantee stability and progress, highlighted by needed reforms. Supporting the private sector and encouraging domestic and foreign investment through strategic incentives and friendlier environment are important pillars of our growth strategy. To get to these goals, we have to overcome reform implementation challenges and remove impediments. I'm overseeing the progress of 11 medium-term private sector reform agenda items. This would allow us to expedite corruption-free and pro-investment policies and regulations in such areas as agribusiness, the extractive industry, telecom, construction, and local industries. Regional trade and business interactions are also paying off, as we saw last week during the US-sponsored India-Afghanistan Passage to Prosperity Trade and Investment Show that gathered hundreds of businesses in New Delhi. Afghan women have come a long way. As was mentioned yesterday at the start of the side event, women empowerment is a critical piece of our agenda. But so is protection, safety, rights, and access to justice under our Constitution. I also want to emphasize on the importance of working with men to address gender issues in a constructive manner, taking positive community and traditional norms into considerations. Women in part of our society continue to suffer for a variety of reasons. To address this challenge, we have established Coordination Committee, one of 10 such bodies on the elimination of violence against women and girls. This morning, President Ghani mentioned about high councils, which are venues for policy discussion at the highest level under the chairmanship of the President. And at another level, we have established different executive committees. One such committee is on the private sector development, one is on the women empowerment, economic empowerment issues, in refugees, returnees. So the objective of these committees are to develop a coordination mechanism between national and international players to establish effective implementation, reporting, and monitoring mechanisms, to provide policy support through research analysis and knowledge management. We look forward to further working with you on these initiatives. On refugees and IDPs, a big number of Afghan refugees returned from Iran and Pakistan during 2016, absorbing over 1 million returnees, IDPs, and displaced vulnerable groups, poses severe economic and political challenge if not handled properly. planning for the refugees and migrants' successful return in response to the need of internally displaced population is an obligation. Therefore, development and humanitarian interventions are required to facilitate the return and reintegration of returnees and displaced people. The government must support the returnees and IDPs to find shelter, employment as quickly as possible, but the government alone would not be able to handle this. We therefore call on our partners to support us in this endeavor. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you, especially our hard-working organizers, for coming together in this third song. More importantly, thank you for sharing with us your constructive views and suggestions. I also greatly appreciate the support that we have received from members of media in covering our activities. My takeaway from this event, which we need to share with our respective audience, is that the mission in Afghanistan is a long-haul mission. It requires strategic patience, hard work, time to solidify. However, we are on the right track. We look forward to seeing you in 2019. I mean some, because 2019 also coincides with our presidential elections. I have nothing to do with that. Okay? Thank you. Yes,